Welcome to the party. I'm not here right now, but I want you to listen very carefully. Enough talk. It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve, my co-host is Pete.
Hello.
This episode we are talking about the 2014 film Kingsman, The Secret Service. So this was directed by Matthew Vaughn and the screenplay was written by him and Jane Goldman, who've obviously worked together several times.
Yeah, the Kick-Ass, Stardust. I don't know if that's it. It might be.
Don't know about what. Was she involved in Wanted?
He didn't direct that, did he? I don't think. Another Mark Miller property. Let's have a look.
No, he did not. He did not. But he has done a lot of Mark Miller stuff.
Yes. Have you heard, sorry, slight tangent, have you heard the other rumour today about Matthew Vaughn and what he would like to do as a project?
Superman.
No, Fantastic Four reboot. Reboot.
Oh.
He says he'd like to do it and do it properly. But
I think it was him that someone asked him about Superman and said, what do you think of this? And he said, well, if I was going to do it, I'd do it as a film about a positive, hopeful character, because what we've had recently has been very dark and depressing. And I thought, yes, that sounds really good.
So the Holy Grail.
How about that?
Yeah. So had you read the comic series before seeing or after, or not during? That would be crazy. Have you read it before or after having seen the film?
I think I've read some of it, but I can't remember reading all of it. And also, I'm sure the stuff that happens in the film doesn't happen in the comic. There must be some stuff.
There's quite a lot that's different. The one thing I remember, and I guess we're kind of jumping ahead, is that Mark Hamill is in this, but in the comic, if I remember rightly, Mark Hamill, as in Mark Hamill is
himself.
It's himself, yeah, and has been kidnapped.
Yeah.
So I thought that was going to happen here, and it was going to be like a lookalike was the professor, and he was himself in it as well, but it wasn't that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the original.
Should we talk a little?
Yeah. Well, the original series was Mark Miller and Dave Gibbons book, and it was just called The Secret Service, wasn't it? The Kingsman was part of the premise, but it wasn't in the title before the film. It was just called The Secret Service.
And I think they had a lot of problems with the title. I remember Mark Miller talking at the time saying they had to get permission from various people with the fact that they wanted to call it The Secret Service because of obviously the American Secret Service. Mm-hmm. So there was talk around it, whether it's copyrighted, and eventually they cleared it with the right people to say, yes, you can call it that. But for the films, they've stressed the Kingsman part first.
Which makes sense. It makes it sound less generic as well, I think.
Yeah. And it sounds more British as well, and given that it's focused initially on a British thing, that works.
Yeah, and I guess story-wise, it's, well, they say it themselves, it's My Fair Lady. Action take on My Fair Lady.
Yes, that's quite a funny bit in the film where Colin Firth is talking through all these things saying, pretty woman, this, that, the other. He's like, nah, not seen none of them, mate. Then he tells him what it is, and he goes, oh, like My Fair Lady. Yes, that's right. That's right, yes.
And you get the feeling that's almost when he's, Mark Miller's very good at high concepts, and you almost imagine he was like, right, okay, let's imagine Roger Moore era Bond meets My Fair Lady. Well, that's why I put in one of my notes here, is this is like Roger Moore Bond crossed with Attack the Block.
Yeah, because at the beginning it's very urban. Eggsy's from a very working class background. He lives in a small flat with his mother. She's a widower. Actually, we should probably talk about the very beginning and how it kind of affects the rest of the film. Do you want to?
Well, yeah. Even before that, though, what I'd like to say is that I've never known a film tell you the tone so quickly, because the title of the film bounces out of an explosion towards camera.
True.
So basically, it just goes, "This is not the most serious film you're ever going to see," within seconds. I thought it was quite good. But yeah, the idea, Eggsy, he lives, as you said, lives with his mum and are not particularly nice. I don't think he's his stepdad, but just kind of the guy that his mum is seeing. His mum played by Samantha Womack, formerly Samantha Janus, a British TV stalwart of EastEnders and Game On many years ago.
I remember that. I used to love that show.
I used to love that show too. And another episode, no new podcast. And the opening premise is that I can't remember all the code names, but they've all got Knights of the Round Table names, haven't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, Eggsy's father was killed on his first mission, I think, having graduated as a Kingsman, and then he's given a. What does he give him? I can't remember. This is terrible. It's only been like 2 days. What does he give him when he's a child? Because it starts off with a bit like...
the medal.
It's a bit like the watch scene in Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Yeah. So he gives him a medal and it gives the mum a number to call and a sentence to say if they ever need help. And then it kind of fast forwards to Eggsy as a scallywag teenager.
A young scamp who's...
Yes.
A bit of a lad with some of his mates.
Who's very good at reversing. Very good at reversing.
And doing donuts and cars. I like the fact that they kind of introduce him one way and they sort of say he's just a bit of a scamp, as you said. He hasn't got a job. He hangs out with his mates. He steals a car. He gets in trouble and all this kind of thing. They kind of lead you in a false sense of security or leave you down the wrong path on purpose to make you think that that's all he is. But then he has that meeting in the pub with Harry Hart, who got him out of the police station, who then kind of lays out all this stuff about him and says, you joined the army, you were doing really, really well, but you quit. Before that, you were... Was it gymnastics?
Yeah, he could have been an Olympic gymnast and then knocked it on the head.
Olympic gymnast. And you're like, wait, what? So suddenly you realise that this kid looks just like a geezer, talks like everybody else around there, but he was actually quite clever and he was actually doing really well. And I guess he's just hiding his intelligence to fit in. Yeah,
I'd say that's definitely the case. And it's a great cast. I mean, it is like a British who's who. Now that there are no Harry Potter, there is still a Harry Potter film, but there weren't any Harry Potter films for some time, so the British actors had to do something else. So Colin Firth, I think, is amazing. Jack Davenport isn't in it for very long, but he's super suave and very Bond when he's in it.
Yes.
Samuel Jackson, probably my least favourite part of the film, but we'll come back to that. Michael Caine being Michael Caine, which is great as always. And yeah, is it Taron Egerton? Is that how you say his name?
Yes.
Yeah. Who I still keep thinking, is he definitely the Eddie the Eagle guy? Because he doesn't look anything like he did as Eddie the Eagle.
He is.
I know it is. I know it's him. Same director. And Mark Strong. And for once, Mark Strong is not playing the bad guy. Which, did you find all the way through you're waiting for him to reveal he's a bad guy? And then you go, oh no, Mark Strong can play other characters.
He was brilliant in this. Have you not seen Grimsby or The Brothers Grimm, whatever it's called?
No, I haven't.
He's not the bad guy in that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yes, you're right. Normally he is the villain. He's normally just the guy that...
Yeah, and even if he's not, yeah, exactly. He's the guy who, there's usually a reversal of like, oh no, but you always go, well, it's Mark Strong. It's going to happen at some point. But I like the fact it doesn't happen here.
Yeah. But yes, the cast is just fantastic. Yeah. We should also say some of the other people in the cast. One is Sofia Boutella, I want to say, who plays a character called Gazelle. More recently, people would have seen her in things like The Mummy, where she was playing the actual titular character Armanette, who is the Mummy. She was in Star Trek Beyond as Jailer as well. Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen either of those.
She's also in Atomic Blonde that's just come out, which I've not seen, which is based on Anthony Johnston's graphic novel, isn't it? The Coldest City.
It is, that's right.
So yeah, she's done a lot of stuff very recently, but it wasn't until I started looking through IMDb page and thought, oh right, that's where she's from. But in this, she's playing someone with two false legs. She's got
blades?
2 blades, with nasty pointy bits on, which is another callback to kind of the Bond thing of the villains having some sort of pointy shoe or weapon or secret thing. Like, remember the old woman in Bond?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. It does wear its heart on its sleeve in terms of the Bond thing. It's a shame that they actually mentioned Bond later. That is one of mine. I have a small list of negatives. That's on that list. She's in Star Trek Beyond. Did you say that already?
Yeah. Jailer. She was the sort of main.
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, okay. I won't spoil it. But anyway, she's she's quite unrecognisable, to be fair, in that, because she's covered in lots of makeup, so you wouldn't really know it was her unless I've just told you. But she's good in that. Yeah, I liked her in that. So yeah, the cast is amazing. Lots of British people. It's set in England mostly.
Yes.
So that makes sense. And the story kicks off with we realise that Eggsy gets into trouble. Colin Firth realises he's got potential. He recruits him. Well, he allows him to be his nominated person to audition, but
go through like the training program, where they kind of reduce it down until they get to the right people. And I love that. I mean, it was a lot of it's quite kind of tropey, but the fact that Arthur, which is Michael Caine's character, is very much like, he's not from the right background, not from the right class. The only time he's ever broken away from the class structure was with his father, and look how that worked out. So it's some of it's a little bit predictable, but it's nicely done. And I think Colin Firth is brilliant in this film. I love his portrayal of Harry Hart, because it adds class to the film anyway because of the sort of actor he is, but he's very believable. Considering the film is very heightened, it's a very heightened film, but considering that, he's actually, I think, quite a believable character.
He grounds things. Like, it is ridiculous and it is over the top, as you said, because at the beginning the name explodes towards the screen, but equally there's moments where they're looking at all of the equipment in the shop, and he says, "Oh, what's that? Is that like a laser?" And he goes, "Don't be ridiculous. It's a hand grenade." And but he just plays it down. He just like deflates all the stupid stuff and then gives you something else, and you're like, oh, "Okay, because he said it, I believe it." Yep. I totally believe it.
He does, and
I believe him.
And things like the tailors and stuff. A couple of times I'm like, I know that street. I know exactly where that is in London, which I think is great. I like stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, have we got to the umbrella scene yet? Because that's one of the best scenes in the film.
Yeah. Go on, talk about that.
So basically, the stepdad / mum's boyfriend guy isn't very nice, and he's got his own kind of gang of delinquents that are in the pub. And Eggsy's there with his mate and kind of egging them on, no pun intended, and kind of thinks they're not going to do anything because of who his family is. But he basically just he pushes them, and then he runs out with the keys of one of them, and drives off in reverse. Well, drives off forwards in his car, and then when he's chased by the police, goes off on possibly the longest car chase I've ever seen that's in reverse. I was impressed.
Yeah, that was good.
And
it's when Harry's trying to have a conversation with him in the pub, isn't he?
Yeah. As a follow-on from that, and then the same guys are there, and now they've got permission from the guy that's seeing the mother to say, actually, because you nicked the car, they can now rough you up. But they don't quite manage it due to Harry. And I love this. He's going to walk out, and it's a beautiful bit of foreshadowing for later in the film as well. He goes to walk out of the pub because Eggsy's kind of not interested, and he's about to leave, and then I can't remember if they say something or do something. What is it? They say
something. They sort of say, "Oh, if you want to find another rent boy, go down so and so street," and that's what they say. And that's when he locks the doors.
He locks the door and turns around. Yeah. I didn't think I could ever be intimidated by Colin Firth, but I can now.
Manners maketh the man.
Yeah. And then kicks a Guinness in his face. And then it goes into...
He flicks it with his umbrella.
He does. And it goes almost into bullet time, this sequence. It's brilliant. It's there's 3 amazing set pieces in this film, I think, fight wise, and this is one of them. He's got his high tech umbrella.
It's incredible. It's just the way he directs one person into the next. Yeah. One guy comes to stab him, and he dodges and just like guides. It reminds me a little bit of the Equalizer scene where he's timed it. It's not quite the same, but it's where he uses their own momentum against them. So one guy pulls a knife, goes to try and stab Harry. Harry just ducks and lets his arm carry on, and he just stabs his mate. And his mate's watching the knife come towards him. It's like, no! And the blade just stabs his mate. It's like, oh, God. And he flings them about the pub, and the only thing he's used is his umbrella, and that's it. And it's just such a good fight.
And it's also, Egg's expression, because he's kind of... everything's, changed, because this is not what he thought from this prim and proper posh guy that's basically just annihilated 10 people. And I think as well, in some films you think, well, if there's not a credible person they're fighting against, it's not as interesting. But actually the fact that he just takes them all out it's really good. And I say it happens more than once.
So what was you mentioned 3 fight scenes, so what's the other one? We're going to jump around.
We will jump around.
So what was the other fight scene?
There's the church, definitely, which is like, it's like, I watched that in awe, trying to work out how they even made that scene possible. So should we jump to what happens? So later in the film, there's like a SIM card, which already feels dated, that can control people, and it brings out kind of, I think also go base emotions, isn't it? So when Harry's in this church, instincts. He basically because he is a killing machine, he literally kills probably 100 people in a church. But that as well is so kinetic, and again, it's using people against each other, and it's a very similar scene, but much more kind of brutal, because he's more controlled, isn't he, in the pub? Because he's he's literally in control, and in there it's kind of, and then the third one I guess is when it's Eggsy's turn, is the kind of in the layer, on the way out of the layer in the tunnel, the tunnel sequence, which is again one man versus many, and again very Bond. Oh yeah, it is in a secret kind of lair buried in a volcano, more or less, a sort of hidden away. But I think the church fight is my favourite, because he's not just disabling people in that one. His base instincts are coming out, as you said, and he kills everybody. But the weird thing is, he goes in there, and the villain Samuel Jackson and Gazelle are like, oh well, that's him taken care of. And then she goes, well, maybe not. And then she's watching the fight on cameras, and you just watch them go to I think it took them like over a week, or at least a week, to shoot that one scene. Not surprised, because
it's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's probably one of the best fights I've ever seen. It's easily on par with some of the stuff we've seen in like John Wick.
Yeah, it is. And again, sometimes that kind of stylized and heightened thing can take the impact away from a fight, because it feels so artificial. But these fights have got that great balance. It's very modern and in the way it's done, but at the same time you do get the sense that everyone's in a lot of pain.
And I like the fact that he ends with the preacher by, I think doesn't he stab him with his own crucifix, and that's like the last person he kills in the church.
He does.
It's just all these little nods all the way through.
That's good.
Incredible.
And I think I think we both like a good training montage or a training sequence. In this, you just get the whole like an academy kind of feel is really well done as well. Again, admittedly, it's very much, we have the posh guys, but it does play out really well, I think, in terms of he looks at things slightly differently than everybody else, and that's his biggest strength. Yeah,
like even at the beginning, their first test, when the room gets filled with water, they like one of them shouts something. I'm not even sure what he even shouts still, but they know to go and put the pipe down the back of the U-bend, and then they've got an infinite supply of air and blah, blah. And he doesn't even know that because he doesn't know what they're saying.
Yeah.
But he's the only one that actually tries to break out.
Yeah.
And he's the one that saves them by breaking the glass. So he doesn't follow them. He's thinking independently. But it's weird because Merlin has said there's only one position, so you're all competing against each other, and yet he also says you all failed because one of the first people in that test drowned because they weren't looking out for her. So there's this weird kind of contradiction in a way that you should be selfish, but equally you need to look after everybody else.
And maybe that's the biggest challenge.
It's teamwork.
Yeah, maybe that's the biggest challenge of it is you have to. It's a combination of the two things, I guess. It's a bit like being on The Apprentice, which is why he's in a taxi later.
It's true. Yeah.
Maybe that's what. Maybe Mark Miller was sat watching The Apprentice.
Maybe
wouldn't it be better if they all killed each other?
Perhaps. Some of the tests that they get put through though are quite brutal.
Yeah.
So there's that one. There's one later where it looks like they're supposed to go and seduce this woman at the same time. And in fact, that's not what they're there to do. They get drugged, and then they have this kind of test of their loyalty. There's the other one where they're given a dog, which is actually, I think that's from an SAS thing that's actually real. It's taken from a story from the SAS thing where you get a pet rabbit.
Yeah, okay.
And you look after the rabbit for like a month, and then after the month you have to kill it and eat the rabbit, I think. So they do the equivalent of that with the dog, where they're supposed to shoot the dog. It's the final test. And he said, right, there's 2 of you left, shoot the dog, and then you've passed. And he can't do it because he's been, his little JB, as he's called.
Yeah. It's, and why is it, and the parachute, is the parachute one's the other one, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Parachute drop.
But he thinks they're doing one thing, and it turns out it's something completely different.
I think says, every single time really, it's not what they think, and they're deliberately making it seem more. They're like they're in more peril than they actually are. And they said they do reveal later, I think, that all the people who they think have died were not dead. That were the other candidates who didn't make it through. Mm. So in the parachute drop sequence, they're told that one of them hasn't got a parachute, aren't they? So I guess that is the ultimate test of teamwork, but at the same time being a little bit selfish. But I like the fact of that is he's so keen to help the girl, but I really like the fact that's platonic as well. He's so keen to help her that he's willing to risk his life regardless. And then obviously the payoff is at the end that everyone had a parachute, but it also helps. He's obviously a bit paranoid. He got a bit of a chip on his shoulder because he is the only working class guy there.
True.
So actually, they kind of play on that because he's like, well, typical. It was me that didn't have a parachute, and then Mark Strong's character just pulls the cord and shows that they all had a parachute after all.
he says,
what was really neatly done.
Does say something like, "You better wind your neck in, son."
yeah.
Something like that. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah.
He's almost like. How they kind of made Alfred and Batman be kind of someone was really tasty when they were younger and could look after themselves, but they don't need to know. Mark Strong's character is almost a little bit like that. It's like, I'm here to look after you, but actually I do know what I'm doing. I'm not just here to as a nursemaid.
But there's a great moment that refers to that later on, like right at the end when they're having the big fight, and Eggsy goes, well, come on then, give me that gun. He goes, no, this one is mine. Yours are in there. It's just like, no, this is my gun. So there again, it's like, I know what I'm doing. I can take care of myself. This is my gun. You go and get your own. And you're right. You just get the feeling that he probably knows what he's doing, and he could kick crap out a lot of people if he got pushed.
This is true. Did you notice there's lots of kind of like pop culture moments throughout this film, and they do mention lots of other films. But did you notice the Trading Places bit that paid off later?
What was that bit?
Because when he's listing the different when he's in the tailors and he's listing off the films, like you said, Pretty Woman, whatever, he mentions Trading Places, the Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd film.
Yeah,
and he goes, "I've never seen it," and then obviously, while the story's happening, at some point, Eggsy goes off and watches it, because later, when he puts his suit on, he says, "How you doing?" He says, "Feeling good, Lewis," which is the last line of Trading Places.
Ah, nice.
Which is the thing that Eddie Murphy, I think, says to Dan Aykroyd when he asks him how he's doing when they finally kind of defeated those who set them up. And he goes, "Feeling good, Lewis." Yeah.
True. I didn't
I was like, that is a beautiful thing that I didn't think that many people would notice.
I know that line as well, and yet I didn't spot it in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of nods.
There are, and I don't know about you, I found some of them were really, really clever and worked really well. There were other things I felt that were a little bit annoying. But I don't know if I want to go into that kind of stuff yet or not.
Yeah, go on. Why not?
So I have a real thing about films that mix reality and fiction, if you know what I mean. So they talk about Izzy Azalea. Not Azalea, that's a plant. I can't remember her name, but I'm going to sound like a really old man, but the Australian kind of rapper singer lady. They mention her as one of the famous people that's been kidnapped,
right?
I think near the start.
Okay.
And there's a scene in the White House. So this is a few years ago, and it looks like it was supposed to be Obama.
Yes.
That he's talking to. And they mentioned the Queen and whatever. But I'm assuming that the Swedish princess and the Prime Minister are not the actual people.
No, they're obviously actors.
Yeah. So, but they're not playing even the real bits. To me, it's almost have these kind of moments where it's Obama, where it's just Izzy Azalea, still the wrong name, and and the Mark Hamill touch is nice. But when you combine that with then, but there's a fictional person that's a prime minister of another country. To me, the two things don't marry. I'd rather we're in the world where all the people exist, or none of them exist. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather it was all made up people, or it was. But again, could be just a personal taste thing.
Well, I don't even know who that Izzy Azalea, whoever that is. I couldn't tell you. So it's all fiction to me.
Sure. Okay. Well, Barack Obama's definitely Barack Obama.
Oh, yeah, of course. He was the real one. Totally. Go on, then. What else didn't you like about it? And then we'll go on to some other stuff.
Samuel Jackson's character annoyed the hell out of me.
Yes.
I just thought it was, I don't know, it was like the reverse Unbreakable in a way. And the lisp he was doing, I know it was deliberate, but that bugged me. I don't know, he felt quite out of, even though the whole film is heightened, it's almost like a more serious version of Austin Powers in some ways, with more action. He felt the only character didn't feel like he fitted in the film.
Yeah, and they play up things like the fact.
And I like Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, I do. They play up the fact like he doesn't like violence and he can't even watch it. He doesn't like blood, and they get some jokes out of that later where he can't watch what's going on in the church. When someone gets shot, he can't look, and he's nearly sick when he shoots somebody. They make fun of his own lisp because he says to Colin Firth at one point, "You people all talk so funny. I can't understand you." And it's like, yes, ha ha. So some of that was a bit kind of too on the nose for me. I thought it was just a little bit. The whole film's over the top, but that was pushing it a little too much for me. Just a little too much. But
that, the final joke of the film, I thought was a little bit too far. But that's just me. But the rest of it, fine. And actually, what they did do well with Valentine is they made, even though what he's doing is terrible, there was, like most good villains, a bit like, it always makes me think of The Rock when I think of a villain that's got there's a reason that you can kind of empathise with, even though you don't agree with what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they do that nicely, and the Bond touches. Although I wish they hadn't actually mentioned it, but the fact that they goes to gala dinner. Because the great thing in old Bond films, and actually I guess in the new ones too, is they always work out who he is really quickly.
Yeah.
But that becomes like a game of cat and mouse of and they both know who they really are, but they never say it out loud.
True.
But again, the fact they mentioned this is like an old Bond film, I just thought was really on the nose. But then he turns up at the tailor's basically to reveal that he knows where he is, and just the stuff like that I thought was really again, very old school Bond, but I thought really well done. Oh, the other slight negative was, I don't know if you found this, when you find out that, again, spoilers, but if you've got this far, been spoiled already, spoilers. I think. When you find out that Arthur, Michael Caine's character, is in on it, then that's dealt with in the space of the same scene.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice for him to work it out, and then at least a couple of other things happened before he was dealt with. But that's a super, super nitpick.
There was something in that scene that I quite liked, actually, because, it would have been nice to see him do more stuff with it. But all the way through the film, Michael Caine's been going on about class and how Eggsy doesn't fit and how he shouldn't, really be there and this, that, and the other. And he talks quite well spoken in the film. But when he realises what Eggsy's done, his accent drops. Becomes more like Eggsy, and he goes, "You fucking little maggot," something. It's just So we know where you actually came from. And it's like, you pretend to be all posh, but really, you're no different and no better than him. So that was quite a nice touch for all of the kind of pretense he's put on in the film.
I think overall, I like seeing a British set film that's this big and confident. It's totally it's an unapologetic film. It is the film that it is. And I actually think, all Mark Millar's films are quite OTT, but they've usually got a bit of a heart to them. I really liked Kick-Ass. I didn't like Kick-Ass 2 at all. I don't know if you've seen Kick-Ass 2.
Not the second one, no.
I really struggled to get to the end of the second one. Wow. But what this has got, which I think the first Kick-Ass has got, is it is over the top, it is ridiculous, but it's got a heart to it underneath. And I think the central relationship between Harry and Eggsy, that kind of pseudo father-son thing, is the heart of the film, really, and makes you be fine with the crazy stuff that goes on.
Yeah, because they all the way through they've already told you that it's an over-the-top film. They nod to Bond all the way through. They're not pretending, even to the point of where he's got a poison blade in his own shoe. I like that though, when he goes, impersonate a German so-and-so, and he starts to do this salute. He goes, no, click your heels together. And that's just like a direct lift from a Bond film. There's all of the objects that look like one thing that are something else, hand grenades and pens and watches and all that stuff. That he's even got a poison dart in his watch, and that's straight from a Roger Moore Bond film, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think the new film has got a car that goes underwater, I believe, from the trailer I saw.
Right, there you go. So it's just, it's like...
Yeah, it's not...
a comedy Bond for the 21st century, in a way.
Yeah. I think the fight with the female assassin at the end, that being the last person you have to fight, is very Bond as well. Yeah. I think, again, if they hadn't said Bond film out loud, then I would have just embraced that too, I think, and been happy to go along with it.
The one bit I didn't like as well is when he talks about films a lot. Valentine does. And then right at the end he says, "Is this where you say something funny?" And he goes, "No, it's not that kind of film, mate." And it's like, hang on. So are you talking about someone making a film of your life? Or it's just like you've broken the fourth wall at that point. Like, they never look to camera and wink, except for on two occasions.
No, but they almost do.
And those are the kind of moments I was like, if I'm trying to buy into this, I don't really want you winking to camera or talking about us being in a film. That's those are things like, I wish they hadn't done that.
And I think, although it has to go even further to make the big end sequence, I think it possibly goes too far, too unbelievable. And also, I don't know about you, but as soon as, again, spoilers, as soon as Harry is killed, I think the whole film kind of lags without his presence. Personally, I don't know. I don't
think it lagged without him. I think it seemed like it was going in one direction with the Eggsy's out, she's taking over, but then it all kind of goes pear-shaped, and he gets pulled back in. Really,
and actually Harry bringing him back in was great. Yeah, I love that bit. Again, it's one of those. It's a film that has got lots and lots of really good things in it. It's probably about 20 minutes too long. I would argue. But again, that could just be me.
I don't know.
It's quite a long. It's quite.
How long is it?
Go on. Hang on. I remember thinking it was quite long. Hang on a second. Let's find out. It probably isn't. It certainly isn't a 90-minute film, that's for sure. It's going to take me 20 minutes to find out now. Oh, the irony. 2 hours, 9 minutes. It's not that long.
I know some films have got a lot longer these days. You get 3-hour films, which us growing up, we never had that. The longest films I've ever seen then were martial arts films, probably.
Yeah.
A 2.5-hour film was incredibly rare at the cinema, and then we started getting 3-hour films. And now the trend seems
They've gone back to the 90-minute thing has come back in a lot more, particularly with franchise stuff.
Yeah.
Or certainly close. I guess 2 hours is probably more common. But I think I recorded this from the TV and I had adverts, so maybe that just made it seem longer.
Yeah.
Obviously, I spun them off, but maybe.
I didn't think it lagged. I think some films can be too long these days, but for me, because there was so much action and there was so much going on, I didn't feel like it was too long. So.
No, I think maybe it's maybe lagged was the wrong word, because certainly there's something happening all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't let up, that's for certain. But I think maybe I was just enjoying Colin Firth's performance so much that was like the extra bit of magic in the film. Yeah. That I guess when he was off screen, you lost that. But same thing. I mean, even when like Jack Davenport does the same thing in the opening scenes, even though he's not in it for very long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Merlin gets to do more Mark Strong when Colin Firth isn't there, so that's
true, which is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of shores him up, and he becomes more of a mentor at that point, because he's been guiding all of them all the way through, doing the tests and telling Eggsy, wind your neck in, son, and it's not what you think. And then when it's just the two of them and Roxy left, they have to kind of work together, and then he's sort of guiding the pair of them. As the cube kind of figure, but also their sort of teacher, saying, right, do this, do that, you've got to get on, son, you've got to do this. So there's more of him, and I think more of Mark Strong's always a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. For some reason, it reminded me a bit of Who Dares Wins, but I haven't seen that since I was very young, probably too young, and I can't really remember much about it, but I'm wondering if there are any nods to that film in here that I subconsciously noticed, but I might be wrong.
Which one's that one?
Lewis Collins and Edward Woodward.
Who Dares Wins?
But I might be thinking of completely the wrong film. This 80s SAS film, not Mamma Mia, an SAS film.
SOS. I don't know. I'll have to go look up that one now. I've probably seen it, but I can't.
Okay. It's a classic.
Okay. What did you think of the?
I'm mixing up with. I'm just thinking of Lewis Collins.
Oh, okay. What do you think of the use of music in this film, particularly towards the end with the sort of climax scene?
Good, yeah, really good. There's lots of 80s music, if I remember rightly, isn't there? There's a lot of 80s music in this film. Yeah,
I think so. A lot of 80s and 90s.
But yeah, no, it's really Yeah, I mean, I think Vaughan uses music really well in his films anyway, but it's difficult this year. Having seen Baby Driver, any other use of music in a film pales into insignificance a little bit. But no, I did like the music in the film a lot and how it was used, definitely.
And I just like the way that when we go around the world and we see all the people's heads exploding and the bright colours and kind of firework. I don't know.
That's a great scene.
Were those all CGI fireworks, I guess? From the look of it.
I think, yeah.
There was very little model work. There was no kind of anything. It's just they cover over someone's head and you just see all this kind of bright... It's like flowers, really, like floral arrangements. And it was almost like synchronized swimming in a way. It's so bizarre.
But again, I think that's very Bond, where the villain's big action is actually almost like orchestral in its kind of... it's very over the top and very kind of grandiose, even though it's not very nice. And I think they captured that mood really, really well in that scene.
Yeah.
That kind of feeling that, loads of people are dying, but actually there's some kind of elegance to the whole thing, which sounds quite weird to say.
Well, no, because if you just saw 400 people's heads exploding, it would be quite grisly and revolting, and you'd just be put off by it because you don't actually see it happening, really. you see maybe one or two people. It just reminds me of that scene in Indiana Jones where, you know, with the Ark and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
A little bit like that, but you don't even get to see it. It was nowhere near as bad as that. And that wasn't that like a PG or when we were kids or something.
Yeah. The amount of films now that I put on for my daughter that we watched as kids that are PGs, and I'm like, swearing, sex joke. I don't remember all this. It's like, I guess a lot of it goes over your head. But even something like Goonies I watched, I was like, whoa, okay. I think and E.T., there's some stuff in E.T. that I was just a bit like,
really?
Ooh. Yeah.
That's like though, isn't it?
Again. Yeah. Exactly. But you watch it again. Times have changed. Times have changed. We've all, but I've become the overprotective parent that I never wanted to be. But there you are. But yeah, you're right. It's the Indiana Jones films are pretty full on. Really, aren't they?
Are. Yeah. Let's not pretend. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this film. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of over the topness, and Mark Hamill doesn't seem to last very long either. Isn't he only in it for like 20 minutes as well?
Yeah, he's not in it very, very much at all. But I thought when they said, he can't have been kidnapped because he was back at the university, you were going to find out that one of them was Mark Hamill and one was the professor, but he was the professor. But he's the first, I guess, he's the first time you find out about the
chip,
the implants, the neck implants. It's from him.
Yeah. So, what else do you want to talk about? Or are we ready to give the film a score?
I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, but then it's one of those films where there's so much that happens in it, and without kind of just recounting exactly what happens, it's no. Let's give scores. I think.
Enough with the yak. What is your score?
Okay.
You're happy to do that?
I'll go first. So this is the second time I've seen this film, and the first time was a few years ago, actually, so I'd forgotten some bits. I'd remember that it was very over-the-top and bombastic and lots of action. I'd forgotten some of the jokes and the nods to James Bond, which I enjoyed. Some bits annoyed me then and still annoyed me now, which we've talked about with Samuel L. Jackson and stuff. But overall, I had a lot of fun watching it. I didn't think it was too long. The cast is absolutely fantastic. Some of them are so annoying, but they're meant to be annoying. Like all of the posh kids that are teasing Eggsy and making fun of him. Michael Caine was really good. They're playing up lots of things, not only with Bond, but to do with class and how you're raised and who you are and all this kind of thing. So there's stuff that's going on, and you can scratch the surface, and there's more things there if you really want to. But if you're just watching it as an action romp, then it doesn't really stop, because there's a lot of martial arts, there's a lot of kind of gunplay, there's a lot of driving and cars, and it's great set pieces, and the fight in the church, unbelievable. Just, I've never seen anything like that before in a film. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it 4 bags.
Nice. Okay. So I hadn't seen this before. As I say, I'd read the book, but I hadn't seen the film. It's one of those ones I just hadn't got around to watching. So thank you for picking it. Just give me an excuse to watch it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of action comedies, and I would say this in the overall picture kind of fits into that mold. I love the whole clash of culture stuff. Again, as I say, seeing a British film or a British set film that is so big and ballsy, I really, really liked. The fight scenes, particularly the 3 that we picked out, are immense. So I'm almost agreeing with you score-wise, but I guess that mentioning James Bond and the mixture of kind of real people and not real people, Samuel L. Jackson's character, the Swedish princess gag at the end, which I thought really didn't work and wasn't necessary, and a couple of other things that just didn't quite work for me, are why I would give it a very solid 3 bags.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I ummed and ahed between the two, really, because purely on the basis of action, it deserves more than that. But I guess I've just got to keep thinking back to other films, I guess, and other scores that I've given, and where does it fit in all the action films I've ever seen. And I think it's slap bang in the middle, which I think makes sense.
Yeah.
I'd remembered something else that annoyed me, but as I was saying it and giving the score, I forgot what it was, because that's the age I am at now. But maybe I'll remember later.
Okay. Cool. So, have you seen Kingsman? Get in touch with us, bagsofaction@gmail.com. Come onto the Facebook group and talk to us there, or you can follow us on Twitter. Right, we'll be back. We don't know how to sign off the show, so I'm just going to say good night, Pete.
Good night, Stephen.
You have been listening to Bags of Action. We'd better stick around for the next episode, because if you're lying, I'll be back.